What is going on, guys, and welcome back to Touchdowns to Home Runs. My name is Bernie. Thank you for joining us today on the Touchdowns to Home Runs show, the March Madness edition. And yes, it is Selection Sunday, so we finally have the official bracket that just came out moments ago. So today we're going to be taking a look at the matchups. I'll be breaking sort of down each one of the first round matchups, giving you my predictions, possibly some sleepers as well, and just what to expect overall over the course of the next few weeks. I'm super excited for this, so let's get started in the first region, which is the West region, where we have the Gonzaga Bulldogs as the number one seed, and obviously going through this year, winning the West Coast Conference and going undefeated throughout this entire season. And I mean, you look at the Gonzaga Bulldogs, led by Jalen Suggs, Corey Kispert, Timmy Ayayi. They got 4 double-digit scores. This is a really solid team and probably the best team in the country in terms of offense. They'll play the winner of Norfolk State and Appalachian State. And then you move down, it's 8 Oklahoma versus 9 Missouri. Oklahoma has really struggled in a very competitive conference at the back end of this season. And then you look at Missouri. I've been really high on Missouri all year. They were probably a projected 5 seed at a point in the season, and then their best player, Tillman, got hurt about midway through the season, and they really struggled in the second half of this year. But I'll tell you what, Missouri's a really good team, and if they get hot at the right time, which I think they can, over the course of the next week, I think Missouri is definitely really dangerous here, and I would take probably Missouri here in this first round matchup. Then you got an interesting one with 5 Creighton and 12 UC Santa Barbara, and Creighton is coming off a conference tournament's finals loss. They had a pretty good week before they played Georgetown, who also now is a bid stealer in this year's tournament. But you look at Creighton, led by an extremely talented guard in Marcus Zagorowski, and playing a very talented UC Santa Barbara team. It should be a really exciting matchup. For Virginia, 13 Ohio. Ohio is one of my sleeper teams. They had a fantastic week, capped off with the tournament win against a very talented Toledo team. And Ohio had some really quality wins in their conference over the course of the past week or so. And obviously playing one of the best teams in the country, in my opinion, in Virginia. Would have had them higher than a 4 seed if they actually got to play out the rest of their ACC tournament. Unfortunately, got hit by the pandemic and had to pull out of the tournament. But hopefully they're good and healthy for the actual March Madness. But I would be taking, again, Creighton there. But in this matchup, look at Ohio in this one for the upset. I would still take Virginia, but this one's going to be closer than I think a lot of people think. 6 USC versus 11 Wichita State. And then you also got possibly Drake. It's Wichita State or Drake in that 11 seed matchup playing the play-in. USC has had a great year so far. Had some bad losses at times, and then on the flip side, you got Wichita State, who lost yesterday, and you also got Drake, who's really gone downhill in the second part of the season. This is a team, again, who was the third last undefeated team. Extremely talented still, but let's see who makes it on there. I think Wichita State probably wins that play-in, and I think that's going to be a very favorable 11-6 upset. Then you got 3 Kansas versus 14 Eastern Washington. Eastern Washington playing in the March Madness, I think, for the first time since 2015. They're a very interesting team. And then on the flip side of that, you got a very talented Kansas team who also unfortunately got bit by the pandemic. But you're looking at veteran guard play. You're looking at just an extremely overall well-balanced team who's already beaten Baylor this year. Look out for Kansas to really make some noise in this tournament. Then you got 7 Oregon, 10 VCU. To be honest, I'm really surprised that VCU is as high as they are. They finished second in the A10, just lost in their conference tournament today to St. Bonaventure. But VCU is a talented team. And then on the flip side, you got Oregon, who had a fantastic regular season in the Pac-12, ended up getting upset in their conference tournament. But again, Oregon is a really interesting team. Look out for them. And then you got number 2, Iowa versus 15 Grand Canyon. Obviously, Iowa led by Luka Garza, but they're so much deeper than that. They've played phenomenally so far in what's been an extremely talented Big Ten conference this year. I think Iowa not only wins this matchup, but it's going to be really interesting to see what a Kansas-Iowa matchup looks like potentially down the line, and then the winner of that who potentially plays Gonzaga. I love this West region. I think it's so underrated. I've already seen people talking about, this is one of the worst regions. I'm thinking the complete opposite. I really love this West region. Let's flip over to the South region, which which is where we have Baylor as the number 1 seed. Baylor's been so good this year. Now, it's unfortunate that they lost in their conference tournament to Oklahoma State and Cade Cunningham over there, but you look at Baylor, Maceo Teague, Jared Butler, so many players on this Baylor team. Baylor's talented. They're beating Hartford in this matchup, and I really like Baylor to potentially be one of my national champion favorites. 8 North Carolina, 9 Wisconsin is one of my favorite first-round matchups so far. You're talking about a North Carolina matchup led by an extremely talented head coach over there who's got his players playing really good basketball at the right time of the year. And then on the flip side, you have a 9 Wisconsin team who, really lost in a Big Ten conference game to an Iowa team in a game that they should have won, in my opinion. But you look at them with Demetric Trice, Nate Reavers. It's a talented team. They're not playing great basketball right now, but this is a team who could figure it out. And although I like North Carolina in this matchup, Wisconsin could, surprise some people and even give Baylor a run for their money in that second round matchup potentially. You got 5 Villanova versus 12 Winthrop, and I'll tell you why this is an exciting matchup. Villanova's coming off a loss to Georgetown, but also I don't think they're going to be having Colin Gillespie. So this is a Villanova team that's injured. This is a Villanova team who's had struggles really over the course of the entirety of the season. And then on the other side, you got, Winthrop, who's been playing some very good basketball, and as a lower conference team to be a number 12 seed, that speaks a great deal, I think. You got 4 Purdue versus 13 North Texas. Purdue's being one of the more underrated teams, I think, in the Big Ten, coming off, a very, very tight overtime loss to the Ohio State Buckeyes, who just lost to Illinois in the conference finals. And then on the flip side, you got North Texas. I know is going to be a popular sleeper team. I'm not a huge fan of them. I watched their last 2 games, I think, in their conference tournament. And I'm a big Purdue believer. 6 Texas Tech, 11 Utah State. I would like Utah State here for the upset, but particularly talking about Texas Tech, you're talking about a team who's a 6 seed just really because they played in such a talented Big 12 conference. Texas Tech is a team who could make a lot of damage, a lot of noise in this South region, but I would take Utah State. And then you got 3 Arkansas, 14 Colgate. Arkansas is just such a fantastic team. Finished the SEC schedule on an 11-game win streak, but they're playing Colgate, who is one of my sleepers coming into this year. They've won like 12 of their past 13 games. Look out for Colgate. 7 Florida, 10 Virginia Tech. Haven't watched much of these 2 teams. I did watch Florida's last game, and they have Michigan's old center in Colin Castleton. They got man over there. They're a very talented team who lost some players last year, but they're still really good this year. And then you got 2 Ohio State versus 15 Oral Roberts. Ohio State played such a great game against Illinois in their conference finals today in the Big Ten to battle back from 17 down and end up going all the way to overtime. But with E.J. Liddell over there, Dwayne Washington Jr., this is a team that I think, has a real legit chance not only to get out of the South region, but really push towards that national championship game. Next up, we got the Midwest region with Illinois as the number 1 seed, and congratulations to the Fighting Illini for winning the Big Ten Conference Tournament. And they'll be playing 16 Drexel. But when you look at Illinois, you're talking about 2 real superstars with Dosunmu and also Kofi Coburn, 2 of the most talented players really in the entire country. But you look at the rest of that roster with Andre Curbelo, Frazier. This is a deep team. Illinois is probably my pick, or definitely one of my more favorable picks to be winning this national championship this year. And if they get hot at the right time, I think it's definitely possible. 8 Loyola Chicago, 9 Georgia Tech. I know a lot of people are going to be taking Loyola Chicago, obviously because of their Final Four run a few years ago. But on the other side is a really tough matchup in Georgia Tech, coming off their conference tournament victory. Some really, really nice wins with wins over Florida State, and just really good basketball at the back end of the season, particularly against ranked teams. So I like Georgia Tech in that matchup. And then you got 5 Tennessee versus 12 Oregon State. Oregon State, a bid stealer out of the Pac-12. With some huge wins over the course of the past week, and most notably the one yesterday in a really tight one against Colorado. And then on the flip side, you got Tennessee, who played fairly well in the SEC tournament. Tennessee's a team that I really liked coming into the year. I'm still 50-50 on them. They've had some good wins, also some bad losses, but, Oregon State's playing some really good basketball at the right time, and even though I would take Tennessee, look out for this. Oklahoma State, number 4 versus 13 Liberty, is probably one of the best matchups of the first round. You're talking about an Oklahoma State team with Cade Cunningham, who has beaten just about every single ranked team in that extremely competitive Big 12, and they ended up losing in their conference tournament finals to Texas. But on the flip side, you got a very talented Liberty team. And this is potentially, one of people's more favorite sleeper teams coming in to the tournament. And there's good reason for that. I mean, when you look at what makes a March Madness sleeper, you're talking about some good veteran guard play, and 2 of their top 3 scorers are guards. They shoot 39% from 3, which ranks them number 10 in the nation, and Liberty is a very talented team. Look out for that 13-4 upset there, even though I don't think it's a very favorable matchup for Liberty in that 4-13 matchup. 6 San Diego State, 11 Syracuse, probably my favorite upset pick besides any 8-9 matchups. Syracuse is playing some fantastic basketball, and it's really unfortunate that they lost that tight one to Virginia. But you're talking about a good coach in Jim Boeheim and Buddy Boeheim on that team as well. Absolute sniper. Look out for Syracuse to upset San Diego State, who is a ranked team, played fantastic basketball this season. Lost Malachi Flynn this year. Not as good as they were when they were undefeated last year, but this is a very good San Diego State team. But give me Syracuse with that upset. 3 West Virginia, 14 Morehead State. I have watched some of West Virginia's bigger games this season. They got a ton of veteran players. This is a very, very solid team on both sides of the basketball, and a very well-coached team as well. And then 14, you got Morehead State. I love this Morehead State team. They will not win this game. But look out for them. That could be an exciting game. 7 Clemson, 10 Rutgers. Clemson as a 7 is a little surprising to me. And then on the flip side, Rutgers, one of the teams at the back end of the Big Ten to make it to the actual tournament. But I'll tell you something. These teams in the Big Ten, you play good teams night in and night out. And Rutgers, their record does not actually show how good this team actually is. I like Rutgers on this 10-7 upset. And then you got 2 Houston versus 15 Cleveland State. Houston with a big win in their conference tournament finals against Cincinnati. Absolutely destroyed them. And then on the flip side, you got one of the most interesting teams, I think, in this bracket, which is number 15, Cleveland State. Cleveland State in their conference, I don't know if some of you guys have seen this video on YouTube, but they were down like 24 points, I think, with 6 minutes left. This team does not give up. They will try their best to give Houston a run for their money, and I'm looking forward to that one. And then in the final region, we got Michigan versus either Mount St. Mary's or Texas Southern, and I know a lot of people are going to be picking against Michigan, and something here to keep in mind is that Isaiah Livers will probably not be playing for the Wolverines in their first few games, but you look at this roster: Franz Wagner, Eli Brooks, Mike Smith, who set the Big Ten record in their conference tournament with 15 assists earlier on in their conference tournament. But Michigan's so talented with their freshman center, Hunter Dickinson, over there. But LSU in the second round is not an easy matchup at all, who are going to be playing 9 St. Bonaventure, who won their conference tournament today. But LSU really had a nice game today against a very talented Alabama team. And with Cam Thomas over there, the best scorer in the SEC, is one of the most talented players in the country. LSU is going to beat St. Bonaventure, in my opinion. And even though I'm a Michigan fan, this is a very, very scary matchup in the second round. 5 Colorado versus 12 Georgetown is another really interesting one. You're talking about a Colorado team who was playing some great basketball at the back end of the season, lost their conference tournament yesterday to Oregon State. And then on the flip side, you got Georgetown, who had a fantastic week in the Big East Conference tournament, beating Villanova, Seton Hall, and then also Creighton. So that's 2 teams who are actually playing in the March Madness and being top seeds in this March Madness as well. Georgetown's playing some good basketball at the right time. Patrick Ewing has them playing some great basketball. And don't let Georgetown's record fool you, because they lost a lot of players at the beginning of the year, and maybe these new players are just sort of starting to figure it out. 4 Florida State versus 13 UNC Greensboro. Florida State has been upset quite a few times in the past little while. They had a good week before they lost to Georgia Tech. And then on the flip side, you got a very talented UNC Greensboro team. I don't think they lose here, but I think, Georgetown, if you're looking to really pick some upsets, you pick Georgetown to possibly win 2 games here, and that's really, really possible in my eyes. And then you got 6 BYU versus either 11 Michigan State or UCLA. BYU is one of my favorite sleeper teams this year. I was doing some research on them the other day. come into this game with a 20-6 record, but 3 of those 6 losses came against obviously the most talented team in the country, against the Gonzaga Bulldogs. But when you look at BYU, you're talking about 3 senior guards, you're talking about an extremely talented big, you're talking about, even though they don't play in an extremely talented conference in the West Coast Conference, their out-of-conference schedule was very talented, so they actually did play a lot of quality teams like USC, Boise State, who just missed, San Diego State as well. So definitely keep an eye on BYU to possibly, win a few games in this tournament. I want to focus on Michigan State because I'm happy that they got a play-in game. Aaron Henry, Rocket Watts, Joshua Langford over there. Guys who haven't necessarily played well this year, but could get hot at the right time. And obviously with Tom Izzo, could get his guys ready, prepared to play not only UCLA, but really give BYU some issues there for the upset. And I think when you look at the few players in this tournament who can really take over games for teams, Aaron Henry at Michigan State is that guy, in my opinion. You got 3 Texas versus 14 Abilene Christian. Texas is coming off their conference tournament victory over Oklahoma State yesterday. But Texas, when you look at the way that they match up against teams, they got a ton of height, and that's what I love about Texas. 7 Uconn versus 10 Maryland. Maryland is such a great team, I think. I saw them play a couple of days ago versus my Michigan Wolverines. Both teams who haven't been so great at times. I would like Maryland on this upset. Pay attention for that one. And then we'll round out the bracket with one of probably the best 2-15 matchup. You got Alabama Crimson Tide, who have played fantastic this season, and ended off their conference tournament, obviously, with the victory. But then on the flip side, you got Iona, who's one of, definitely probably going to be the most picked 15 seed in my opinion, led by Rick Pitino over there. It's a well-coached team who's got a lot of momentum over there. Don't count Iona out in that 15-2 matchup, even though I would definitely pick Alabama here. But yeah, that's the bracket. Those are the 4 regions. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Obviously, a lot to talk about, a lot of sleepers. And, until the actual March Madness games start later on this week, there's going to be a lot of debate, a lot of bracket picking. So if you like these videos and you want March Madness coverage throughout not only this week, but throughout the entirety of all the games played out over the course of the next couple weeks, make sure to leave a thumbs up on this video. Also subscribe to Touchdowns to Home Runs so you can get all the information on how we can get you guys to pick your perfect brackets in this upcoming March Madness. But anyways, guys, if you did make it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again next time.